And welcome back to another night edition of Fully Equipped. Okay, well, RB, Uncle Gene, and Serial Killer. Whole crew is here. Guys, I'm liking this new nighttime routine. It gets all of us on the pod again because it felt like for a while it was 2, it was 3, maybe once in a while it was 4. But we're back again, baby. We got some hot takes.
Yeah,
how we all doing?
Nighttime edition's fun, man. I like it. I get to be at home. I'm unwound after work. Don't have people coming to my office
amongst
door.
all your swag head covers.
Yeah, I'm in my element here. My hoarder's
He just
paradise.
showed us another cover that he bought. You are such a hoarder. I am fearful for you and everybody else that you're enabling along the way. We talked about that you've already gone down the rabbit hole and maybe you're at the bottom of the barrel. Yeah,
I'm at the bottom.
You're
of
just
the
enabling
hole,
people now, Kris.
beckoning other people to come in. That's my job now at this point. I'm just come in. It's nice. It'll be fun. It's great.
See, my kids are asleep, which is why like I'm recording here where I am. I don't know, like obviously not a visual medium when people are listening, but like I brought a golf bag for.
We
some
are now,
ambience,
RB.
But if you look to the other side, you'll notice a
pod
giant
on
chair
YouTube
full
channel?
of squishmallows. So anyone who has children probably has some squishmallows. There's an entire chair covered in squishmallows behind me.
What is squishmallow? I miss that. My kids are all teenagers.
Please no. We're not going down. We're
gonna explain this real quick to Gene here.
That's worse than swag head covers.
A squishmallow is a hyper understuffed stuffed animal. So when you just compress
it's an overpriced stuffed animal. Full stop.
It's an overpriced understuffed stuffy. That's all it is. And unfortunately, I have a father-in-law that loves to just drop them off every time he visits. So, yeah.
You know, I'm gonna tie this in. It's really wild. You know, having kids, especially young kids, you start to see fads and trends and what sticks and what doesn't, like with toys. And it's kind of interesting because there's some Pokemon and like bottle caps and all this other nonsense, Pogs and but it's kind of wild because it does draw.
Do you want to keep going?
Well, it draws some parallels to golf as to, you know, what's hot, what, you know, we're just all, you know, overgrown children at the end of the day. And we start chasing things just like our kids do. And that's
my wife would confirm.
Yeah.
Counterbalance putters coming back.
Exactly. And, you know, and now like Kris is at the forefront of it. It's like, you know, what's hot, fads, trends, and head covers and things like that. It's kind of wild. It's not much different than, you know, what children are doing. So yeah, we all
Don't normalize this behavior.
Arrested Development.
Do not do that. What you're doing is you're making Kris think that what he's doing with his money is just fine
healthy.
And dandy. No, it is not.
Yeah. It's his version of a 401k. Let him run with it. All right. So
yeah, I don't.
He's asking for if somebody knows where a Jordan Belfort swag head cover is.
Are we throwing an ISO on the pod? Because I'm still looking for the Wolf of Wall
go
Street
for it.
head cover
Go
from
for
the
it.
PGA show.
Do it. I don't care.
Help a brother out.
You're so far gone.
I need one. Yeah.
Well, I've got like
Wolf of Wall Street, actually, if you have the head cover, do it.
I went back and saw an old video of like my shop when like we first moved into our house, and there was like 4 staff bags, and now there's like 17. Well, there's not 17, but there's a lot of golf bags. I was like, is there too many here? And I've got one that one day I'll probably tell a story about, which I think is pretty funny. Which is a new edition.
One is the best one.
Yeah, the last one is the best one. It's got a pretty good little fun story, which maybe I'll share next week or something. There you go. There's already our teaser.
Yeah.
But as far as things that are popular, I think the most popular thing this week was Mr. Canadian Nick Taylor in Scottsdale. Big winner once again. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Congratulations to
really
Canadian.
Impressive run. Really impressive run to watch.
Spider Red too. Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out Spider Red.
He had a couple of oldies but goodies in the bag. He was rocking the Atmos blue. Saw that.
Yes. I did his what's in the bag. I was like, man, that's old. I can't even link that to anything that, like, you know, because everyone knows, like, look, we link to things that people can, if they're curious what it was, you can link to a shop. We do that. It's out in the open. That's not like some secret cryptic thing, all right? But like, I was like, Atmos Blue. Well, I guess no one's shopping for this thing anymore. Good luck. I mean, that's got to be going on at least a decade, which is kind of crazy. It is probably one of the older shaft models out there now that I think about it.
I mean, it was.
I saw another old one today, by the way. If we're talking old shafts, really quick. Brian Harmon. He still has Speeder 661 Evolution 2.
Oh, okay.
Evolution 2.
That's like
they're on like Evo 6 now or something. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I think 7's
so they're
coming. Or maybe not.
So that was an oldie but a goodie. Anyway, sorry, not to hijack it, but yeah, saw one today. I'm at Riviera, by the way. Sorry, not right now as we're doing the podcast. Not at Riviera as we record, but I am in Santa Monica.
What was Atmos? Was that 2015, 16, 17 in there?
I think it's earlier than that because I was still like building clubs all the time. That was like something that we offered, like tour spec was like a big thing, like when they offered that in the Atmos Red. And then they did it in like the hybrid. Then they had the hybrid shaft, which was like the V8 something, which is not the vegetable drink. So yeah, there was a couple of generations of that, and that was kind of one of the first times. I know obviously like Mitsubishi had done it with the white and the red and the blue and that, but then Fujikura did it with the Atmos blue, red, and I think they had a black, but I don't know if it really did that well. But I know the blue and the red were kind of like the ones that people were always after, and there was the VC tour spec one, which was again one of the first tour spec shafts, and that sold pretty darn well. That was like one of the first players hybrid shafts, like that was really popular.
The Atmos driver was the precursor to Ventus, as it was essentially those profiles, the red, the blue, the black, were essentially the platform for separation and profiles to Ventus coming out.
And now we have the new one out on tour this week. Look at that. What a transition.
Love that. I gotta say, man, that Ventus 3.0 is no joke. And that cobalt blue is sick.
Yeah, I saw it. It's out on tour for the first time this week. And the Fujikura guy said that Gary Woodland had one built, probably going to test when he gets home. But I want to talk about Riv and some of the things that I've seen, but are we not going to talk about Phoenix and what the hell happened?
It was a poop show.
Yes, no, maybe so.
I mean,
it was a gong show, guys. I mean, it was crazy. I know Coach was out there. Kris, did you go?
I was out there a couple days. Yep. And even
did you go out Saturday?
Like early. No, I avoided that place like the plague on Saturday, but my phone was blowing up with the amount of friends that I had that were on property. And it was just picture after video after video after picture. And Snapchat was going crazy. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this asshole. Look at this guy. I mean, so many people wanted to just be a highlight reel. And I mean, I was talking to a lot of my friends about it. I would say the majority of people that are on property, specifically on Saturday, don't care whatsoever about golf or the fact that there is a golf tournament being played. And they have advertised this thing as the biggest party in golf, and now people are coming just for the party.
I saw it was Jeff Shackelford in his newsletter, which I thought was really good. He had taken like an Instagram story from somebody who was like asking what would happen, and he was the person whose story it was like a bartender who was there, and he was explaining it after the fact. And basically, from the sounds of it, again, one account was that there were so many people getting in on Saturday because of the general admission tickets and all of those things that at some point the people who are running the front gates were like, okay, screw it. Like, this is just like, it's too busy, like whatever. And they just started letting floods of people in. And then these floods of people started getting into areas where there were like VIPs and free drinks and those kind of things. And so as bartenders are trying their best, and then they basically just like, screw it. Like, we're not paying for these beers or booze or whatever. So they just started flowing everywhere. And the next thing you know, it was pandemonium because you have people who are like not, again, I've worked in the alcohol sales industry. I've been to a lot of like large event parties and festivals on the giving end, not the receiving end of the libations, but I've done that many times as well. But you have to keep track of these things because you're liable, which is why I guess it was like noon. It wasn't even like, it didn't even get that deep, but it was like noon or 1 or 2.
Late.
It was like, no more sales. Like, I guess the fire department or the police were just like, you guys have to cut it off right now. And they didn't turn the tap back on all day, which is kind of crazy when you think of the fact that like they were probably only open for like 2 or 3 hours. And let's be fair, people were probably, as we used to say in high school, pre-gaming it.
So 100% they were. I mean, it was light beer on site and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Gene doesn't even he's not even going to have to give it any insights here because Gene goes to Coachella and he's seen shit shows far worse than the Phoenix Open. So that's why Gene's staying quiet right now.
I do have some insights. It's kind of interesting when I did the exhibition on 16, we arrived a couple days early and one of the Thunderbirds was our host. He was taking me around on a golf cart, and right at the entrance, everywhere you see at the Waste Management, they have this mesh over all of the chain link fence, except for this one stretch, and it was 50 yards. And he goes, "Do you see that stretch right there? It doesn't have mesh that says Waste Management." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "That's because that's where the buses show up at 6 a.m. and the ASU students get out and the cops sit there, and the ones that are too drunk to walk, they zip tie them to the fence, and a paddy wagon comes and picks them up and sweeps them to the drunk tank, and they do this every day." This was 8 years ago. He was telling me this, so this isn't anything new.
Imagine how much more chain link fence they have now.
Oh.
But they've been the point is that, you know, this has just been out of control for a long time. And, you know, when we got that hole in one, I remember walking by people like on my way with the robot. And I mean, people they honestly did not know that I was physically there. I mean, they didn't see me. They were like running into me. A level of inebriation that was just off the charts. Coachella is much more drug based, not necessarily alcohol.
much more
Just as if you want to like separate,
just as a frame of reference, you know, for our loyal listeners. But no, but yeah, that my one and only experience there, it was epic. So that's why I was kind of curious, and we were talking before the recording. I was like, asking Kris and Coach, was it really that bad? And you guys were like, "Oh yeah." And that's coming from veterans, so that's saying something.
This last bit is going to get cut from the pod, which is a damn shame. But oh man, that was great. Okay, Zach Johnson. Everybody saw the video. Did everybody see the Zach Johnson video? Yes, no.
Yes, yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I heard from my understanding, he was getting chirped a lot about the Ryder Cup, which I think as a non, European or American fan, I think it's just kind of funny in general. Which, by the way, I mean, I don't think he was a very good captain, nonetheless. But I thought Billy Horschel telling people to just like completely F off was pretty funny. Like, and you know what? Billy's a guy who's going to stand up and like he's more than willing to speak his mind in many cases. So to hear that and be like, guys, we're trying to hit golf shots here. Like, it's our job, or it's our blank job. So I think that was pretty interesting. But again, from a sporting events perspective, golf is very unique because it's not a reactionary sport. Like, you can get yelled at in baseball or soccer or, football, whatever. But golf, because people are standing there waiting, it is one of those things where when there is gambling on site, there can become issues. And I think that is what the biggest concern with this is. But the crazy thing is on Sunday and when guys coming down the stretch, the fans self-police. And I think that's probably the most, it's kind of like the shopping cart mentality, right? Like, no one has to return a shopping cart, but as a society, most good people return the shopping cart. And I think it's kind of the telltale sign of, coming down those last few holes and on the playoff, people were quiet, mostly quiet. There's probably a little bit of a buzz. But the buzz is okay. It's when you get the random shouters and they kind of police themselves, and that's okay.
You realize there was a thing called the Super Bowl going on, and no one was around. Everybody had already bounced by
Good point.
that point.
That's a valid point, Gene.
Very good point.
I was still watching the playoff holes. I was loyal. I wanted to see Charlie Hoffman win.
I was rooting for
But-
Charlie too, but well.
That'd have been some
Would've been
good
a cool
synergy
story.
for the waste management folks.
Yeah, for sure. And
Hey,
Charlie's been out there grinding.
Yeah, for sure.
He got a lot of airtime for waste management, that's for sure.
Hell yeah.
Now to
That's
transition,
what I said all
he-
that
from-
synergy out the window.
One of the things that was interesting about the Hoffman bit is apparently that's like one of the longest running shirt sponsorships on the PGA Tour. It's getting close to 20 years, which makes sense. The dude's like 47 years old. I didn't realize how old he was, which also reminds me, like, I'm actually older than I probably think that I am. But another guy that like this week unveiled some new clothing. I think we got a few takes on that because it's cool. And people got pretty hyped about it. And like, I could not open up my phone without seeing like Sunday Red. And like, look, am I ever going to get invited to one of these parties after I say this? No. But like, do we need another polo? I don't know. It was cool. Like, it's cool. It's cool to see Tiger in something different. But like,
oh, hold up.
I got
one more take on the Phoenix Open?
oh, okay.
Take on the
All
Phoenix
right.
Open.
All right. Then we'll get to this cashmere hoodie thing in a second. But
I'm just joking, but I do have some gear minutia because this is a gear podcast. And I'm sure by now I'm going to get a whole lot of emails this week from people saying that they just hated the first segment of the pod on the Phoenix Open. It's okay. I probably hate it too. But here's some gear minutia for you.
We should leave the unedited in. That was one of the best outtakes I think I've ever heard. But
where I was laughing to the point where I was crying. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. So Charlie Hoffman and Nick Taylor actually share one thing in common when it comes to the gear. And nobody knows what it is except for me. Only because Titles told me. They both, and I don't remember the last time that you'd have to go back and figure that out. These guys mark their golf ball the exact same way. Exact same way.
That's interesting.
really?
They put, yeah. So they both play Titleist golf balls. They both play Pro V1X, and they both mark their golf balls with a CH. So the C goes on one side of the play number, the H goes on the other. And CH for Charlie Hoffman is, of course, his initials. Hopefully you got that one. And the CH for Nick Taylor is the first initials of his two kids.
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I
That should have been a Super Bowl prop bet. The two guys in the playoff will have the same markings on their golf ball. I mean, they have prop bets for everything else. So why
Okay,
not?
there's
Why not
how many?
for
What
the
is
marks
there?
on the
20,
golf ball are?
26 letters in the alphabet. God, I hope that's right. So like 26 times 26. Yeah,
I don't know.
20
Don't ask me.
26
good at
times
math.
26. Is it? I'm gonna have to Google this now. But if you take that number and times it by 2, and then you add you think of the combinations that are there. I mean, that's a pretty
It's
big
a
number,
Yeah.
right? I'm thinking about
Yeah.
your statistics.
And of all the
per-
things you can mark on your golf ball,
yeah.
dots, circles, whatever. Anyway, so that's it. No more Phoenix Open talk. Yes, let's get on to Tiger and his new Sunday Red. Anyway, so Tiger did an event on Monday evening in Santa Monica to announce his new apparel line, and man, there were a lot of hot takes on social media. A lot of hot takes. And I guess this is normal for the launch of a new apparel line. It feels like there is no middle ground. Everybody either loves it or they hate it. And that's just the way that is. And big surprise, people either loved Tiger's new apparel or they hated it. It seems pretty safe to me. I mean, other than a shirt that looked like it kind of had a camo pattern on it, or I don't know how else to describe it. It seemed pretty safe. And I don't know if they're going to expand it or if it's just going to kind of stay in that happy middle ground, but I don't know. I mean, it's polos and hoodies. Although Tiger did say that they were the only ones doing cashmere hoodies. I think people were like Grayson, Peter Millar. Like, do you want me to keep going? Ralph Lauren, and so apparently Sunday Red is not the first one, but yeah. I mean, TaylorMade's getting into the apparel game. They've got a whole bunch of. I mean, it makes you wonder though. I mean, how many Nike guys do they have on their staff? Scotty,
Scotty
Fleetwood.
and Fleetwood are both, and Rory. Actually, we're out Rory now
Tiger.
that I think about it. Holy smokes! That's
yeah,
quite a
Rory
bit,
as well.
actually.
So do more of those guys end up in Sunday Red because they're TaylorMade guys? I mean, that's logically that's where my mind goes to, is not so much what's the apparel going to look like, what's the next shoe going to look like. Got some takes on that one too, but
Well, if
do they get any of these other staffers to wear it?
if Tigers is like Sunday Red, is like Scotty's line going to be like no putts made? Like what are we going to? Sorry.
Wow.
Look, guys, honestly, think about it. Like,
RB from the top rope.
He was.
I don't expect that from Canadians. Good for you.
He was like
Holy
50th in
shit.
putting. He was 50th in putting, and he was like top 5 in everything else at the waist management.
So
like,
bad. Gene's video went out.
The man could have won that event by so many shots, but it was just again, kind of shocking. But nonetheless, I mean, as far as Tigers, I don't know why I had to get that in. I feel bad at picking on him. I mean, why do I feel bad? He's
there's the Canadian.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully he listens to the podcast.
But anyways,
next time he sees you out on tour, you guys can meet up on the putting green.
But like, I don't know. I feel indifferent about the whole thing. Like, I mean, it's cool. Like, I mean, I think it's neat that it's not Nike. I think one of the funniest jokes that I saw was Antifaldo, who is one of the best follows on golf Twitter, was if you turn the logo sideways, the tiger just looks like a fused vertebrae spine, which I thought was very funny, which someone else like aggregated, and then he didn't get the credit for it, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, it looks pretty cool and it looks comfy. Looks like cool gear. If it's good cut, I'm sure they'll sell a lot of it. But as a he's whatever. I mean, sure, it's going to be better than a lot of other clothing lines that you've seen from like a lot of other players over the years. But I mean, I don't know. I'm 40 years old. I'm kind of in the target market. Like if I have two different options, like, I'll probably buy the Tiger shirt. But I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah.
What about the shoes though?
Yeah.
The shoes look like, and then I'm not like trying to hate on the designer, but like it just looks like another shoe. Like I feel like there could have gone so many different directions, but I also feel like part of it is because they're Tiger shoes and they had to create some type of obvious, very like a lot of stability. There's probably a lot of tech in that shoe. That's what I'm actually curious about the tech of the shoe more than anything else, because you can see that there's like carbon in the sole. They gotta be a stable shoe, but do they look great? I don't know.
Do you remember the prototypes that he wore at Hero?
The all black ones? I remember them, yeah.
All black
he wore them in
ones.
like the practice round, right?
Those things, like, I kid you not, out of all the shoes that I've seen Tiger wear, I mean, the FootJoys are nice. Those are nice shoes. But those black prototypes were awesome. It looked like all leather. Strong, I mean, just a strong looking shoe if you're going to be looking for something more traditional. And I posted pictures because as I mentioned, I'm out at Riviera this week for the Genesis Invitational, and I took some pictures of Tiger's shoes, and it's like they replaced the piece on the heel with like a red like carbon plate with the Sunday Red logo. And they changed up the material on the sides and the design's different. I was like, oh man, I got super excited because I thought maybe they were just going to release that shoe, the prototype. And it's like, it looks kind of like it, but not totally. I'm not a huge fan. It just seems like there's way too much going on, man. I took some close-ups, and I'll post a few more that I took later in the day when Tiger was wrapping up. He played 9 holes a day, started on 10, finished on 18. But I don't know. It feels like it's kind of just too busy for me. Honestly.
What do we think of black golf shoes, though? I again, I've never been someone who can wear.
I don't hate
know they
them.
wear
I wear all
pants,
white.
like-
I wear all white golf shoes, but
Yeah, I just can't do an all. I can't do an all black shoe. It's just not my thing.
I
But
think
I know
I've
they look
only
fine. I mean, they
ever
look fine with
owned
pants, but it's
two
just never been
pairs of
something
black
I've been
golf
into.
shoes, and I wore them pretty much just in the winter.
yeah.
Like I never got into the black shoe. I was scrolling through the comment section after the launch went live for the Sunday Red product, and one that just made me like belly laugh was somebody had made the comment that it looked like the Slazenger cat died. Just like, oh god. Like that one just got me for some reason.
That's pretty good.
Oh yeah,
I like that
okay,
one.
yep, I see that. I had to go back and look at the
that's
Slazenger
pretty good.
logo and went, oh yeah, that's just too close to accurate.
Mr. High Fashion is very
that's pretty
quiet
good.
over there in San Diego.
Well, it's interesting when it came out. I was imagining myself in the pitch room, like, okay, here we go. Ready?
Get out.
Sunday Red. And it's just like everything. The way it was hyped up, it just. I think, unfortunately, I think the clothes look fine. I think the shoes look fine. Everything kind of seemed to fall flat. That was it, and it just. But what was weird about it was the way that it was set up. It was set up like you almost felt like you were missing something, like Sunday Red. Is there some other meaning? And then he goes in to explain, the origins with his mom and everything like that. No, I mean, that was nice, but it kind of fell flat. That was my sense.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what a lot of people were saying is I think they were expecting a lot. I'll tell you the one thing. I don't mind the apparel itself. It's pretty basic. But again, I think they're just trying to release something that a lot of people are going to like initially, and then maybe they can branch off and do some things that are a bit more out there. The biggest miss for me is the logo. Like, I get that the stripes on it, and it's funny because when I saw the initial the initial logo and I was counting the stripes and I was like, it's 15. I can see 15 stripes, assuming that they're all supposed to be stripes. Probably for his major wins, and that's what it was. But, and a couple people pointed this out on social media too. You think about like Tiger's old logo, he owns that logo. And think about the Frank head cover logo that Nike released. Could you imagine if Tiger had come out and his apparel line was based around the Frank head cover or his old logo when he was at Nike?
Agreed.
I just feel like it would have been a better look. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
I think that could have made it. Logos are everything. I feel like it could have made it.
I agree, and I think what they probably did was they're gonna save it. You know what I mean? Like, because you want to like if you're gonna launch a new brand, just from like a branding and like
that's a good point.
My
I can
marketing
see that.
brain goes off on this is like you have to differentiate. Like you have to immediately differentiate, or else you do not want to create any type of confusion with like, is it old Nike? Is it whatever? Right. So I think that's obviously like a very important thing, even down to like the logo placement. Like, again, like the whole, like, I'm just thinking of like every marketing checkbox of like what it would be, like what they're thinking is like, you don't want it on the shirt. You don't want it on the chest. You want it in the middle. You want these different places. And I think they achieved that. I think they've differentiated themselves. And if that was their like initial goal at launch, then they've definitely succeeded really well, because people are going to know very quickly that Tiger's not wearing Nike. And I think it allows them, to your point, Jonathan, like the opportunity to build on what they've created. Does it fall completely flat? No. Is it like a game changer? Not really right now. But it has immediately differentiated itself. They had enough people in that room. There's enough, buzz about it that like people know what's going on. So it gives them the opportunity to expand. But I think people know that it's not Nike, and I think that's probably the most important thing right now, to be honest. It's kind of like when people were trying to learn to pronounce Uniqlo, when Roger Federer switched from Nike and Adam Scott, and people's like, what? Like, what is this? And it's like, well, it's cool. It's a Japanese brand. It's kind of like, it's kind of like Japan's Gap. It's very cool. Like, it is, there's, but people are like, how do you pronounce it? And I think people kind of know what it is now. So I think they've done that job of differentiating him as an athlete, which I think is probably the most important thing. If I put my marketing hat on here.
Yeah. There we go. All right. I think it's enough Tiger apparel talk. Yeah. Last point, I will say, when I saw him on the range today, it just looks weird seeing Tiger without a swoosh on his hat. It does. And I think that's going to take some getting used to. Anyway, speaking of Tiger, yes, he is in the field this week at Riviera. And I had a chance. It's always really funny. Tiger doesn't play a whole lot these days. So like the opportunities to shoot his bag are few and far between. So I'd gone into this week knowing I was going to be at Riv. I had been I typically going in, I don't know if I've ever talked about this before, but people always wonder how do I, and I don't, RB, you might be different than me, but typically the way that I do it when I'm going to a tour event is I try to pick 4 or 5 guys that I want to get their bags. I want to shoot full what's in the bags. And then anything else that I can find that's cool, great. But Tiger's is always tough because, he goes off really early. Typically he'll show up on Tuesday, go off super early, and then he'll play the Pro-Am, but the Pro-Am's always sort of a crapshoot. And so I was trying to get out there today. I was getting some work done early this morning with, the time change. And I was thinking it was 7 o'clock, got up at 5 a.m. working. I totally whiffed on the time, got stuck in total traffic getting over to the golf course. And I missed my opportunity this morning. And I thought, oh crap. Well, lo and behold, I got lucky. After he finished 9 holes, I shot his bag. And typically it's just rush and get it done. Shoot everything. I'm trying to get everything at address, which I know a lot of people out there appreciate, and trying to get every club in the bag. And I decided to take a little bit extra time today with the putter. And Tiger's Scotty Cameron putter is the only club that I've ever held that scares the ever living daylights out of me. Because every time I pick it up, I feel like I'm going to drop it. And every time I put it back in the bag, I feel like I'm going to drop it on a club and it's going to get another ding mark. Now, that probably is not that big of a deal, because what I did differently with this time when I shot Tiger's putter in hand, I did some really up close pictures of the putter, because it's tough to see sometimes when I, RB and I do our standard in hand photos, we try and get the whole head in the shot. We're not zooming in on the face unless there's something there that we're trying to highlight. And I noticed this from a lot of people. I posted these pictures on social media today. A lot of people thought Tiger's Scotty Cameron Newport 2 GSS was pristine. That thing is not pristine. It is beat to shit. And there are gash marks in the face, and the top line looks like somebody just took a little ball peen hammer and just hammered right along the top line on either side. There's still residue from the lead tape that he had in the back cavity, and the red paint and the cherry bomb in the back cavity is completely gone from all the lead tape he's used over the years. The red paint in the cherry bomb on the face on the toe side, heel side is kind of missing. There's now rust spots on it is just the coolest putter to hold. And the one thing that I couldn't capture in the photos was the putter shaft. That putter shaft is so old. It feels like it's going to snap at any second. And it's just you can feel the history. Some people probably are like, yeah, okay, that's ridiculous. It's a golf club. But that golf club won 14 major championships. He's been using it since 1999. That is a cool ass club. And I think it was neat to be able to highlight some of the character around that putter. So that was fun, getting to shoot the putter. Tiger did have a new club in the bag today. He is testing a TaylorMade QI10 Tour 3-wood. He still had the original Sim tie 3-wood in the bag that he's used. So
legendary.
Maybe he
fairway
tests
wood.
it. Yeah, legendary fairway wood. That he's also got the M3 in the bag as well. So 5-wood, M3 5-wood. He again, this kind of goes back to what we've talked about before. Fairway woods are tough. Once guys find good ones, they keep them in the bag. So maybe not if he switches out the 3-wood. But other than that, Tiger's setup is the same. He's already switched into the QI10 LS driver. So that's kind of where we're at right now with Tiger. And again, game time decision on the 3-wood. But he hit it. I went and watched him tee off on 10, and that was the first club he hit of the day. Was that QI10 2 or 3-wood. And other than that, I don't know. It's weird, and I don't know. RB, you've been out on tour a bunch to start the year. Has it felt like there's been fewer gear changes to start this season than years past?
There's definitely tinkerers, but I think like in general, like players are either very, very early to switch and kind of lock in, or for a lot of the reps, like they know that there are players who are going to kind of, as one rep told me, that once they get to Florida is when they're going to start changing. If there's anyone who's held on, because there's like their ramp up to the Masters. The weather is going to be very similar, all the way down into like Texas when they go and play. So, but in general, I don't think there's been as many, but there are ones that are very interesting. And to your point, it was the week after Max Homa won that I like took pictures of his putter. I can't remember what week it was. And I was like, oh, this thing like won last week. And I had the same experience at Pebble with the amateur Nick Dunlap. And I was like, oh, this putter, like this thing like won last week on tour. Like I'm like the guy who was watching it on TV, and now I'm standing here and I'm like, I kind of forget. I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like I do appreciate the fact that the thing that I just watched happen now is like in front of me and I'm holding it.
Yep.
And it is this like weird experience. Cause like, again, as a kid, I appreciate my job. I love what I get to do, but to think 15 years ago, you'd be like, oh yeah, like the guy who just won like that week, like you're going to be on like standing next to him, like taking pictures of his clubs. It's kind of like, wow, this is neat. It is like this very appreciative experience.
Yeah.
So I can imagine holding Tiger's putter. You're like, oh shit. I don't want to mess with this thing.
It's a crazy experience. The first time that I did hold it years and years ago. I think this was like maybe the 10th time, 9th or 10th time that I've shot it. But it was over concrete. That was terrifying.
I would not want to hold any club over concrete.
just out of curiosity, I'm curious about something. How do the logistics work? Do you talk to his manager? Who do you talk to get permission for that?
Yeah, usually you talk to the caddy, and the caddy will give you the yay or the nay. But yeah, with Tiger, usually you talk to Rob Mack, and Rob will give you the yes or the no. So when I asked, and he's like, yep, and he kind of smiled, and he's like, yeah, he's like, here's your window, go do it. And it was like, okay, well, here we go. So yeah, it's again, it's a cool experience. Tiger's bag. He's not out there as often as he used to be, and so anytime he shows up, you want to know what he's got. But to be able to shoot the in-hand stuff is always cool, just because it's Tiger's golf clubs, and I geek out for stuff like that.
I had that experience last year
Tiger
at Waste Management. At Waste Management, I like waited around to get Rory's bag because he had just switched to the 760s and the long irons. And like I waited for his caddy to come by, and I was like, "Hey man, like I work for golf.com. Can I just snap some quick pictures? I know he's got the Vokey wedges. This is last year, so Vokey wedges in the bag. He was kind of messing around with a different putter, but it was the same one. And then it was the 790s, and I was like, I need to get pictures of these. I did not get them yesterday. I waited. I was there so early, just like parked on the range waiting for his caddy. And the cool thing is, when he came up, I introduced myself, told him who I was, and I said, "Oh, like you're from." I know you're from Ireland, and I said, I know Roy's from Hollywood. You're from Hollywood. Like I have family in Carrickfergus, which is like very close. It's in the space, basically in the same county or close to it, which is like small area. And we chatted for a couple minutes. He's like, yeah, do your thing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it does it pays to be on the good side of the caddy. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, you have to be. If you're not on the good side with the caddies, you're toast. So yeah, you need to be on the good side with the caddies. It's imperative. All right. Other things that caught my eye this week. Again, not a ton of changes. We mentioned Ventus, mentioned Tiger with the potential new 3-wood. I saw Ricky Fowler. He of Odyssey versus Jailbird fame. It was testing a AI1 version of that putter, and I don't know if it's going to go in the bag, but from based on the interactions, and it's just cool to be able to like stand there and listen to these guys as they're like testing. And Rick tested the two putters head to head for like close to 30 minutes and was just rolling putt after putt after putt, and really liked the consistency of the AI1 face. But again, it all comes down to, for him, he loves the way that putter sits. And for people that have seen the photos, he has that thick slab of lead tape on the bottom of the sole of that Versa Jailbird. And so for the Odyssey guys, it's not so much the performance of the face insert that's keeping Rick back. It's like finding a way to make sure that lead tape allows that new putter, if he's going to switch to it, allows it to sole the same way, because he just doesn't want it to rock. He wants it to like basically be able to set it down. His putter is a little bit more like toe up when he putts. And so he wants it when he kind of sets that heel side down to really just sole in place so that he can just take it back and take it through. So
it's kind of like there was a couple players
that was fun to.
So you say there's a couple players that actually I've seen at one point there were somebody who like ground the bottom of their putter so it would sit a certain way. And I saw someone do it with a fairway wood one time, and I thought it was the craziest thing because they legit took a good couple. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but a couple millimeters off the heel. So when they set it down, the thing just kind of like rocked open, which I thought was fast because like people don't think like, oh, like, I'm really worried that it's going to do this. And it might have been Goosen. Goosen used to get in there and grind everything. It was like he would grind his own wedges in the van, and then the tour guys were like, "Can you please not do this?"
Sergio would too.
Sergio would as well. Like. They're like, guys, can you please not
Rory
like do
Sabatini.
this? Sabatini. I actually asked one of the reps one time, I was like, who was like the most finicky guy? And like we'd send Goosen stuff, and Goosen would pull it apart and rebuild it. And I'm like, first of all, that's pretty sick. Secondly, it seems like it kind of defeats the purpose. Why would you not just, you know what, here, Goosen, take the components and you build your own damn golf clubs. But I'm sure like they probably don't want that either. Could you imagine just sending all the clubs
that's
to like
what
a
Charles
player?
Schwartzel
you
did.
Build them.
Charles Schwartzel did that. Remember, he drilled out the ports in the back of the heads.
He bought those irons on eBay or something, like, and then he drilled
Muris, madness, pure madness. Speaking of madness, RB mentioned Scotty Scheffler. He was working again with Logan Olson. Logan had 3 new putters. I don't think Scotty's going to switch, but they were just doing some more testing, more feedback, and we'll see where Scotty goes with the putter. Speaking of Scotty's, Adam Scott had last week, he actually switched into the TaylorMade QI10, the core model, the same core model that Rory McIlroy is using. We're seeing a lot more guys. Kris is nodding his head. We're seeing a lot more guys switching into the core model. And if you've got Adam Scott and Rory playing this version, they're not switching to the LS. I mean, Kris, you've tested it. We've seen it on the robot. We're going to get to that episode. Everybody wants to hear Gene's robot episode. I'm not even lying. I hate saying that, but everybody wants to hear Gene talk for an hour and a half. But have you been seeing similar things with testing, just lower spin numbers with that core model than maybe what you've seen in the past?
Interesting, actually, because the initial forecast for market share was heavily weighted towards the max for the mass market. And I mean, from what we're seeing at True Spec, the QI10 core head is just dominating. And so the majority of QI10 product that we have being recommended in the fitting bay is the core head. It's fast, it's stable, it's low enough spin that the high launch, high spin, high speed players can get away with it. And then with the added stability that they were seeing over the Stealth product, I mean, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. I mean, from what we saw during robotic, That thing is really impressive.
It's good, man.
So, yeah, it's a good product. And again, if you've got two big names playing it, not that you should base your purchasing decisions on what Adam Scott and Rory are using, but it is pretty cool to see those guys switching into the core version instead of the LS. Adam Scott also had, man, he's been making a lot of changes here recently, guys. I mean, he's the one player that I will say has been doing some serious tinkering. He had the ping blueprints in the bag, and now he's switched into the Shrixon. He's got the ZX utility irons in the 3 and the 4, and then he goes into the ZX7 in the 5 through the 9. So Adam Scott is, although I will say this we love it. I love it that Adam Scott's changing gear because he's a gearhead just like us. But I love that on social media last week, he was giving shout outs to Panda, who's basically Hideki's club guy for Shrixon out on tour. And then Adrian Riedfeld from TaylorMade, he gave him shout outs for the work they've been doing on his gear. And those guys are so underappreciated when it comes to like building the clubs that the guys are using. I mean, they're sounding boards. They're at some times they're like equipment psychologists trying to figure out like what's going on inside the brain of the player. But to give those guys a shout out, that was pretty cool from Adam Scott. Other than that, guys, I mean, some cool covers. One other thing that I did want to point out, Toulon has brand new putters, and they look really cool. So go check it out on the Fully Equipped social feed if you want to see what they look like. But Toulon's done a like a full on redesign of their putters. They're super clean. Very, very, very impressed. And yeah, other than that, I think again just fewer gear changes. I agree with RB. I think as we get into Bay Hill, I think we're going to start to see some more gear changes. But yeah, for right now, relatively quiet, with the exception of the few that we mentioned. And I think with that, let's get into this week's Fully Equipped hotline. Coach?
Well, I don't even know if I want to do this
think?
anymore after how I was treated earlier in this podcast. But here we go. Here's the first one, which is a follow-up from our discussion on the Max Fly in Lexi Thompson.
Hey, guys, it's Anthony from Kentucky. I listened to your last pod on Lexi Thompson and the Max Fly ball. I personally did a test. I'm a Pro V1 guy and love that ball, but I did a test. A buddy of mine had some of the Max Fly, the new ones with the black dot. And my testing at home on the simulator showed that the Max Fly with the black dot actually spun a little less off the driver and was pretty equivalent to the Pro V1 on my irons. And I love the feel. I was hoping you guys could, with your knowledge, give me a little comparison on the Pro V1 versus the black dot Max Fly. Thanks.
That's a good, I mean, you know what the thing is, if someone's asking about comparing the Max Fly to the Titleist, I think the only thing we got to do here, we got to get some of these golf balls over to Mr. Robot himself to get the actual lowdown. Because I haven't tested anything, so I have a very hard time being able to.
I'm pretty sure he already has
perform.
data on these golf balls.
Oh, look at him! Look at Gene over there, just like digging.
Cheshire cat grin. That's a yes.
So I was just testing those two golf balls this morning, which is kind of funny. But
oh my God, no, you weren't.
I swear I was. And it was. It was kind of interesting, to be honest with you. We don't see a lot of. So if you want to test with me, you send me your product and you send me your competitors' products, and I test them. So
check cash or money order.
And check cash or money order or Bitcoin. No, and
Bitcoin.
But what's interesting is I'm a little bit of this kind of bellwether in that I can see what's popular because people send me what's popular and they want to compare against. And this was the first time that someone sent me MaxFly golf balls, so they're getting on the radar. So that was kind of interesting to see. That they're starting to become included in the conversation. And I can't go into specific details unless we do it for golf.com, but I can say the caller is not that far off. He's pretty spot on.
Very interesting.
There we go. All right.
Very interesting.
Okay.
I want to try these
Coach.
though. I'm gonna try them.
Remember
I can't get them.
those.
There's no dicks in Canada though, so.
All right, we'll
get you some.
We only got 2 this week. This comes from a first-time voicemail or long-time listener, and I would stay tuned to the end.
Gentlemen, this is Jeff in West Des Moines, longtime listener, first-time voicemailer. 2 MOI questions and a comment for you today. First, you've had a lot of discussion lately about the 10K limit in driver MOI. I don't remember ever hearing a numeric limit for putters. Is there one? Second MOI question, you mentioned if you were to add lead tape to a 10K conforming driver, you could easily make it non-conforming. Could you make it conforming again if you counterbalanced it and put some weight back in the butt of the shaft? And my comment, if you're still keeping track, please put me down for Team RB on golf ball rollback. I have zero interest in seeing 8 irons go 195 yards plus. So put me down squarely in Team RB. And in related news, get off my lawn. Thanks. Have a great day. Keep the pod coming.
Well, I feel very justified.
Well played,
in
sir.
in my rollback take, so I will
Vindicated.
At least that's one person on my side. So 2 questions there, I think that are both very interesting. One was about MOI and adding. Is there a limit for MOI of putters? And the answer is absolutely yes. The MOI for limit for golf clubs is for every club in the bag, so that equally applies to putters as well. I have a Ping Doc 17, which if anyone has seen it, it is literally 17 centimeters across from heel to toe. It is at the physical limit by the USGA, and I'm pretty sure it's very close to the MOI limit that is possible for how a golf club can perform. Secondly, the question about lead tape and if you counterbalance a golf club, does that change the MOI of the golf club? It physically changes the overall MOI of the golf club. It actually makes it higher. It is a heavier system, as like an engineer would call it. But if you make that head really heavy, you can put weight anywhere on the golf club, but they're testing the club head. So the club is still illegal one way or the other. And I know, I don't know what it's like for the builders at True Spec, Kris, but I know that the guys on tour, the builders on tour, they have limits for how much they can add to those club heads because they will exceed the rules. Now, does it really matter if they, like, look, your builders could really pump a driver up for Mr. or Mrs. Haverkamp, Kris, but on tour, they're not allowed to do that. Are you guys pumping? I mean, I'm sure you can't. You don't have to answer.
No, well, I mean, I'll answer. We had quite a few conversations as the Ping 10K and the TaylorMade Max were coming out about, okay, to achieve swing weights, like what are we able to do in regards to adding hot melt or swapping weights from what TaylorMade and Ping include as the stock weight. So if we're going shorter in length, if we're adding a jumbo grip or an oversized grip or mid-sized grip, whatever the case may be, and a lighter weight shaft, and essentially making something that is very light on the swing weight scale, are we able to make any modifications to the head? And I mean, simply put, the answer is no, but the workaround is we're able to use tip weights in the shaft, as the shaft is a separate component, and as far as the USGA is concerned, I can add tip weights in an adapter system and still have a conforming golf club. So that's our workaround with those. But no, we are not intentionally juicing drivers and making things illegal or non-conforming. But like RB said, you could get creative with some lead tape or other discretionary weight applications and get a driver that's juiced if you need it.
The only thing is with that, and this is like I think something that people need to keep in mind, and I've had a lot of conversations with some higher level players about club fitting. We've gone back and forth on this a lot recently, and most people assume that faster players will always need heavy. And first set of clubs I built for this player, strong guy, former baseball player, realized that it was actually too heavy, and went back to something that was like a roughly like D2 kind of thing, a swing weight. We were, leveling out around D5 just because that's what felt to him comfortable at the time. Once he got to the golf course, someone put a lighter club, lighter shaft, slightly shorter club in his hand, and he said, "This thing is unbelievable. I have way more control." And when you're trying to balance out the swing weight, especially on these longer drivers, at some point you're fighting trying to swing something that weighs as heavy as a 3-wood on a driver shaft. And that becomes the issue of trying to create speed. Yes, you've got a stable driver, but in reality, at some point you probably have a slower driver, and that's not helping anybody. The hard thing is to test. Is to test that under human conditions, and then being able to put it on a robot. Because if the robot's going to swing at 100 miles an hour, the robot's going to swing at 100 miles an hour. So
No,
that to me is
not
where
true.
It's not true. Oh, okay.
No, the robot swings with a torque curve, so we apply a certain amount of power. So, for example, if you swing a driver at 100 miles an hour and you put a 5-iron in, it swings it at 90 miles an hour because it's shorter and it's heavier. So it does pick up differences in shaft weight. It picks up differences in length as far as velocity. So yeah, we are able to test that, absolutely.
Well, there we go. That's why I don't design freaking robots. It makes me think like I had, and to put the example,
And
like,
it's kind of scary that I do, but that's another subject.
we'll address that another day. But it's kind of similar to the fact that like I had my wife's been like trying to like work on her golf game quite a bit, and Jonathan and I mean we both got them was photo samples of Zexio's like clubs, and she hadn't hit their 3-wood before. And the next thing you know, she's swinging her 3-wood as fast as she was swinging her driver, just over 80 miles an hour. And it was like, holy smokes. And I said, well, yeah, because first of all, it's a stiff. It's not really a stiff flex. It's a Zexio stiff flex. So let's be very clear on that. But it's a lighter overall golf club. It's got a little bit of counterbalance, and the head's a little lighter, and the swing weight's lighter, and the whole thing is lighter. And the next thing you know, she's like, this is unbelievable. And I know this sounds, I'm not saying it like an ad. Like, it was just crazy to hear her impression of hitting this golf club she hadn't really tried before, just because it was lighter. And it's not like she was, to your point, she's not applying more power to it. It's just that the energy is easier to transfer. And I think that's really funny. And now that I know that about the robot, I'll never question the robot again. Look at that. See, we learn something new every day.
That's just what you want on this podcast, is to learn something new. Even RB.
RB's got 2 victories. He's
himself.
got one in his team, and he learned something tonight. So
I tell that to my kids. I tell it to my oldest daughter. She's like 6 years old. And I say that every day. And I said, like, look, some days you're going to go out there and you're going to fail, and that's okay because it was a learning experience. And some days you're going to go out there and you're going to learn something that's going to be like, you're going to learn something brand new, and it's going to be really exciting. But either way, they're opportunities. So don't take like losing as like something that is a complete failure. And I told her, because you know what? No, Daddy hit golf balls last night. And he couldn't get his ball speed over 162. So you know what? It was a fail as a whole. But you know what? I put the effort in, which means next time we're going to try and do better.
And just like on this podcast, we put in the effort, and we're going to try and do better the next time. That's a good place to wrap it for episode 228 of Fully Equipped. I still am amazed every time I read off whatever episode it is that we're into the 200s. We were going to do an interview this week, but we're going to save those. This has been an hour of tomfoolery, whatever else you want to call it. So let's cap it there. As usual, if you want that social media goodness, check out our social feeds. We are at Fully Equipped Golf on Instagram and our new YouTube page. I guess it's still new. It's been out for a little bit now. And we are at Fully Equipped Golf on Twitter. Thanks as always for listening.